it says, moved his tail like a cedar tree. He says it was the chief of the ways of God. It was this massive animal. His bars were like iron. I don't think an elephant tail looks like a cedar tree. And God said to Job, behold, behemoth. He didn't say to Job there was an animal, but he said, see it. God doesn't tell you to look at something if you can't look at it.
Do you want the truth, or do you want what the world tells you to? Are you willing to stand for the truth, whatever that may be, even if the world hates you for it?
Welcome into another episode here on Zion Media, and I'm super stoked for this episode today because we have my good friend Jeremy Michelle on the podcast with us. And we of course have Latter-day Chad, as you see right down there. And boy, this is such a good topic that I've been waiting for Chad to join us on this because Chad is actually already on the same page on this topic. I met Jeremy a while back at a event, Rod Meldrum event, for Book of Mormon evidence, and they have a lot of different people at those events. They have booths, various topics. We've seen other channels there, and in fact, I've seen the Stick of Joseph there. I've seen Elder TikTok. I've seen some folks from Ward Radio. Even what is her name? I can't pronounce her last name, but even the girl from Scriptures Plus, who now is kind of broken off on her own. And
Jasmine something or
yeah, like
Exactly.
yeah, I've seen her.
yeah. So Jasmine was on there, and they're all about to do a cool cruise and stuff like that. We're too cool for that. We're here at home base. But basically, I met all of them there, and then Jeremy had his own booth. I think about a year before that event where all the YouTubers were at, and I was just blown away. He was just talking about dinosaurs in scripture. And, if you already know from the title and thumbnail, like that's the topic we're going to go over. But I'm really stoked to see what you'll discover as Jeremy starts speaking about this. So welcome to the podcast, Jeremy. I know we've been wanting to have you come on for a long time.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. I love what you guys are doing. I love that you're building faith. I love that you're teaching truth, and that's what we need in our world more than ever. And as I saw that, and in my own life, several years back, I realized, man, we need more faith and more of this goodness. And so, as I dove in, I began to find the truth. And so, about who we are, our divinity, which is obviously taught to us since we're little children. We're,
Real
we're
that's where all this stems from, right? Like it kind of is it's been a journey of you finding out like how to teach the world in a way of our divine nature. And that's kind of why dinosaurs kind of sparked all this.
Yeah, my son was like obsessed over dinosaurs as well. And when they're 4 years old, they can name more dinosaurs than and they can't even hardly speak articulately. And so we were going to every dinosaur museum, and I was wondering about why they're showing the Big Bang at the beginning. And I began to study how do science and religion work together, or do they work together, right? And so that was the big experience for me. Really fun to learn and align science with the scriptures.
Awesome. Yeah, well, so it's funny. I remember being in high school when I first was a member of the church, and I remember one of my like peers, my he was an Italian guy, and he would be in like teachers' quorum. We would literally be just talking like teenagers talk, and he would just said this thing that I bet a lot of teenagers or people just have asked is like, what about dinosaurs? Like he was just wondering like why the dinosaurs exist and why do we have fossils and evidence that they are around? Like how do they fit in God's plan and in this creation of this world? So I'm super stoked to see how you'll go into this. But yeah,
And
tell us a little bit about yourself actually.
yeah, David, what I want to share is that dinosaurs and dragons disprove evolution, and that's kind of the message here. And substantiate that we are literal sons and daughters of God. And so I am, my credentials are kind of fun here. On the slide is I just write that, I have the Holy Ghost as my guide, that I have a divine gift of curiosity. I don't have some of the other letters after my name. Sure, I went to college, but I went as a business degree. And so for me, a lot of this science excitement was new. And that's why I tell people I didn't care about dinosaurs till I was 35 years old. But as a child of God, I believe we all have the ability to learn and understand and know the truth of any subject matter. And we don't always have to just say, well, trust the experts or whatever. We can understand for ourselves. We have the Bible and the Book of Mormon in front of our hands, so much different than the Catholic Church, in the Dark Ages. They were read the Bible in Latin because only the priests would have that. But today each have the ability to know and understand the truth. So, but I mean, as a career, I'm in real estate. So
Awesome.
t- today, what I want to go into is why dragons are dinosaurs, the science behind it, evolution versus creation, the doctrine, and then the dangers. And that's kind of the order I was hoping to follow. And this is my book called Dinosaurs in Scripture, a journey to discover the scientific evidences confirming faith. And in the book, there's like video links, 17 of them to be exact, um, to link you to other videos and other resources because this is kind of a starting point. And so it it was a big project, but it was really exciting to get this book out. So there she sits, little cute little dinosaur. The first reference I find to dinosaurs in the scriptures is right there in Job, um, 40, where he talks about this behemoth and this Leviathan. And some people say these are like mythical animals or that they're symbolic or that they are, something else, a different type of animal that we could explain today. But I believe that this was more like a dinosaur. And here's why. First of all, lion, raven, goats, wild ass, and unicorn are all mentioned. Okay. And I have an explanation for unicorn I could do on another presentation. Peacock, horse, all these animals that are known today. So then the very next verse or the very next chapter is behemoth and Leviathan. I believe these is a real animal. Okay. And people say that maybe the behemoth was just an elephant or a hippo. But this animal, it says, moved his tail like a cedar tree. He says it was the chief of the ways of God. It was this massive animal. His bars were like iron. I don't think an elephant tail looks like a cedar tree. What do you think? Or a hippo? This little strangly little thing.
I don't know, man. It depends on how big those hippos were back then. They could have had big hippos. I don't know. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here, but you're right. Doesn't look like a tree.
Yeah, and so yeah, there's a lot of ways to look at it. Obviously, the scriptures can be interpreted different ways. I feel like a cedar tree, this is what looks like, a big and the chief of the ways of God, this huge animal. And I'll get into more reasons why I believe that. This is just one point of evidence of dozens. Okay. So his bones are like bars of iron. And here's my kids standing next to, you know, a brachiosaurus femur. I mean, these things are just incredibly massive. Some of them had 60-foot long necks, got up to a total of 90 feet long and weighed 30 to 50 tons. It's just really incomprehensible to imagine what these animals would have looked like. And that's why there's this fascination around dinosaurs, right?
It'd be interesting to just see a bar of iron right next to that too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so and they were so strong, and it says in the verses that no man can approach unto him, and there was really nothing that could kill this animal. Um, and in addition, God said to Job, "Behold, behemoth." He didn't say to Job there was an animal, but he said, "See it." God doesn't tell you to look at something if you can't look at it. So he beheld it, just like when Nephi saw the tree of life, he said, "Behold, behold," constantly, right? So I believe this animal was something similar to a large sauropod, long necked animal. So, and my other really exciting discovery that I don't think has now that I don't think this has been shared anywhere because this is from a BYU professor's article that's gone unpublished. He actually had it like hiding in his closet, in his drawer.
Huh.
And it was revealed to me by my friend and doctor and dentist Daniel Burgett. He said, Jeremy, my old BYU professor, he's now at the Jerusalem Center. He retranslated or he looked into the Hebrew meaning of great wells in Genesis 1 and Moses 121. So the word great and well in Hebrew is gedilim tananim. Okay. Tananim does not mean it's actually totally agreed upon among your Israelis and among all Hebrew speakers that it does not mean well, but it actually means a reptile, a dragon, or some sort of a crocodile, reptilian type animal. But I believe the reason that it says wells is because Gedilim means the greatest or the biggest, and it even means long, stretched out. So, what is the largest animal on the earth is a well, right? So I think that's why they put great wells in here. But but like I said, it does not mean it means a dragon. This is just straight from Google Translate. The word Tananim, this is dragon. The word Gedilim is big or long or stretched out. I think once again, this is describing a sauropod right in first Genesis, which is totally mind-boggling to me. So at this point, everyone's like, you're crazy, right? These things lived millions of years ago. There's no way they live with people. They would have eaten everybody. And I say, well, yeah, they were big and they were pretty scary, but if you think they're going to eat everybody, we watch too many Jurassic Park movies, right? Hollywood movies. Any Hollywood movie with a lion in it, the lion is eating everybody as well. And we live with lions. But there was also some different type of atmosphere and different type of world in the antediluvian world. We believe that there was that the people might have been bigger as well because there were giants. So there's a lot of things we also don't know that they ate. They all ate meat since God told them that herbs were going to be the flesh they would eat. So you're like, okay, that's all fun and games. There's some translation, there's some interesting interpretations, but what about the science? Is there any science that proves that dinosaurs might have lived with man and didn't live millions of years ago? Because, like I said, if dinosaurs and dragons didn't live millions of years ago, this proves that the theory of millions of years has some errors in it and that we essentially didn't evolve. Because in order for an ape or a worm to evolve into a human over millions or billions of years, you know, it's a bit of a fairy tale because honestly, it's a I believe it's a bit of a psychological trick because nobody can count to 100 million in your head. You could in your entire lifetime, you couldn't actually count to 100 million, let alone think through that number of what happened through time. So when they tell us these bones are 60 million or a rock is 4 billion years old, you know, you're left to just trust them because you can't know for yourself.
Question. So, do you think using the soft tissue from that dinosaur, we could do a Jurassic Park type thing where we bring in this dude back? Like, could we hypothetically make a clone of a dinosaur with the DNA that's in the soft tissue?
So that's a good question, and I get that question almost every time I bring up the soft tissue uh, uh, of the dinosaur bones, and I'm not a biologist in that area, and so honestly, I could not even tell you. I know they're trying to bring back the dire wolf right now, and there's a lot of talk about mammoths, and it's really cool. I mean, everybody loves dinosaurs and they want to see one. Don't we all want to see and touch one?
Yeah.
Uh, and the fact is, as I continue to present, I'll show you more evidence that maybe you could. But I don't know about cloning and bringing them back. What I do know is that the soft tissue, and I actually don't think they've extracted DNA yet. I don't think it's in that good of condition, but they have found blood vessels. And what the important matter here is that they don't last that long. Usually they last only 30,000 years. and that's the part I focus on.
Well, 30,000 years according to their timing and what they figured out. And
Yeah, and that lines up with what I think, because I've thought a lot about the age of the Earth, and this is just my opinion. And there's certain things I've seen that in the reason why they say the Earth is as old as it is because in order to factor for a natural evolution. Now, I'm not saying maybe God could have done some sort of evolution. I don't know. But for a natural evolution, it would have taken billions and billions and billions of years for their lifetimes to reach that. And that's why they factored in like that. And that's why they have to do the math like that. But also, we have Joseph Smith, who has talked about how there was multiple creation cycles on the earth before this, like preparatory. And this is the seventh when it becomes celestialized or whatever. And I don't know if that means there were other humans on the earth before. I don't know if it was just other life forms. So I'm in a place where it's like, okay, I don't necessarily think the earth is only 6,000 years old, but it's definitely not billions of years old. And this is literally showing that that math that they use for the carbon dating for dating these things is completely off. So it's not even just a dinosaur thing alone. This kind of throws a wrench in all of the dating that they do, whether it's for horses in the Americas, for example. It's like, oh, well, they have horse bones, but they weren't here until this long ago. It's like, well, if you change the dating of how long it takes, they were. So
yeah, that's a
Right.
lot of stuff like this that scientists have like questioned or re-questioned. Is that right, Jeremy?
Yeah, and I have a whole slide on carbon radiometric dating methods that I want to jump into because that's the big question: is how do they know? How could a scientist even know, pick up a rock and do a test on it to say the age of it? So
You know, what'd be really cool is have you on one of our you come back on Zion Media and talk to our geologist, Lance Weaver.
ooh, I'd be interested to see what Lance would say about the soft tissue and dinosaur bones, because he's very, very old Earth. And like I said, I'm in
yeah,
between. For example, in Genesis, what does Cain say to Abel after, I mean, not to Abel, to God, after he kills Abel, he's cast out of the garden. He's like, you can't send me out there. Those people will kill me. Well, what people? I don't think we have a complete account of what happened in the creation or where the earth came from in Genesis. All we know is that the Lord organized this creation, right?
yeah.
So,
I like Lance a lot. I've met him actually,
Oh, cool.
and he's really fun, really smart guy. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of unanswered questions, and hopefully, as they extrapolate some more information, it'll make a little bit more sense and bring it together. This video really answers a lot for me, and I'll share this here about her
What
discovery when
happened
she made it
next
in
happened by
2005.
mistake. Mary put some fragments of the bone in acid to dissolve away the outermost layer of mineral.
If I may just comment on this, notice at the very beginning, this was a mistake. Okay, this was an accident. They were not looking for soft tissue because all the scientists already knew that these were millions of years old. They said this is impossible. We'll keep going with that.
But the acid worked too fast and all the mineral dissolved away. Being a fossil, there should have been nothing left. But there was. And it was elastic, like living tissue.
This is the piece.
No. She showed us video she took under the microscope.
That's really what happened?
Yes.
That's the dinosaur
Yeah.
bone?
Without mineral now. That's what was left.
It looked like the soft tissue she would have expected to find if it had been modern bone.
So it would have had to have been modern bone, right? And they're shocked. Okay. Even Mary was shocked. And we'll hear Jack Horner in a second. He's the guy that advised on the Jurassic Park movies. He's the one that made the raptors move their heads like birds. And he was totally shocked as well.
This was impossible. This bone was 68 million years old.
So you see this and you think, what? You say
Didn't want to tell anybody.
that you'd be ridiculed,
Yes.
right?
And so I said to my technician, okay, do it again. I don't believe it.
And yet,
So sorry, the ridicule part. Like, what on earth? A scientist being ridiculed for making a discovery? Like, what does a scientist even do? Right? They make discoveries, and here she's going to be ridiculed. She doesn't say this in the video, but she waited 1 whole year to tell the other scientists and to publish her research. And she says she was terrified multiple times.
Yet,
Well,
in
it's like
sample
like
after
they say.
sample, they were
So it's like they say, the darkness comprehends not the light. So when there's things that would suggest maybe the world isn't quite the way people think, I think that there's evil spirits or something going around making people freak out. And because that's the only explanation I can think of, honestly.
Yeah. They don't like truth.
there. Things that look suspiciously like flexible, transparent blood vessels. She finally mustered the courage to tell Jack.
She said she dissolved the bone away and there were blood vessels. And, I was like shocked. I mean,
How could that be?
how could that be? That's right.
The things Mary was finding inside dinosaur bones,
Look at that.
blood vessels, and even what seemed to be intact cells, pose a radical challenge to the existing rules of science, that organic material can't possibly survive even 1,000,000 years, let alone 68 million. Mary
So a radical challenge to the rules of science, right? So the rules of science, or what they're saying is fossilization and millions of years, is being turned on its head, essentially. And I can talk more about how this was received, but she'll mention it here from other scientists as well, and what their reaction was.
Jack and their team published their B-Rex findings in a series of papers in the journal Science and were promptly attacked. Critics said their samples might have been contaminated, or that the supposed blood vessels were actually something called biofilm, a type of slime. But as Mary showed us, she's been able to replicate her findings. These are pieces of an even older dinosaur, a well-preserved 80-million-year-old duckbill. When she dissolved it away in acid,
Let's put this under the scope here.
well, look, is that a blood
This
vessel?
is a blood vessel.
Yeah.
You see the branches right there? And look at all of them. And it's so consistent over and over and over again. We do this bone and it comes out and I get excited every time. I can't help it. I mean,
So I think that's probably the end of it there. But she says that it's consistent science, right? She does it over and over again. It's repeatable, it's falsifiable. This is good science. But why did they attack her, right? And it's new for them. The question is, have they now, since this was in 2005, have they now come to accept it? And I watched her give another speech 7 or 8 years after this, and she says there's a group of scientists still attacking her in the press, and they still won't accept it. And they have no science to back up their argument, but they just say, we don't like it. They said, we don't like antibodies because, I mean, I could show the clip another time, but there's more that goes into it, but it kind of just rolls into this idea of what's going on in the scientific community. Why would they teach us that they're millions of years, which goes into our carbon dating discussion.
Yeah, and it's really fascinating. It's like, I'm not gonna go down a conspiracy rabbit hole here, but you have to ask yourself, who is in charge of these colleges and these institutions funding these things, and why is there such a dogma around it? Because there was this Catholic guy who DM'd me on Instagram. He's not Mormon or anything, but he was working as an anthropologist for the Smithsonian, I remember. And he was telling me, like, there's a lot of evidence for, like, very advanced civilizations here in North America. Not Central America, but North America with the mound builders. Like, they had buildings, they had cities, they had all this stuff. And he's like, but there's just this weird dogma where you are attacked if you even talk about this stuff. And at some point, everybody needs to ask yourself this. Do you want the truth, or do you want what the world tells you to do? Are you willing to stand for the truth, whatever that may be, even if the world hates you for it? And that can be in a wide variety of things. It can be about Jesus Christ, or it can be about stuff like this, because the fact of the matter is they're finding soft tissue in dinosaur bones. What does that mean? It means that whatever the narrative going on down here that they want you to think, it isn't true. They're lying to you. They are lying to you, or they are too cowardly to stand up and say that's wrong. So you have to be willing to stand, even if you stand alone in all things, because that's the way the world's going. And if you don't learn to stand up for what's right, well, um, in 2034, you might get a microchip that you can in your forehead that you can't buy or sell without, or something like that. I don't know if that's how it's going to go, but you have to be willing to stand for what's true.
Yeah, and the truth is always going to be opposed. I love this quote from Lawrence Corbridge when he talks about Joseph Smith. He says the truth is always opposed. It's like a companion. If you're not, and I've always learned to ask myself, am I getting attacked for this? If not, maybe it's not true. Because think about all the prophets and all the great people were always attacked. Jesus, Joseph Smith, and that's the way truth. That's I think the way truth is. And that's why this topic has been kind of difficult in some instances for me to share about. And and it's kind of like, oh, you're obsessive over dinosaurs, you're weird or whatever. And I really do love teaching truth. It feels good to your heart, right? You can feel it
Yeah.
here.
And this is more than just being about dinosaurs. It's the fact that what we are publicly told is the reality of our world is not true. It's that simple. The reality we are told is not the true reality, and you have to ask yourself, why is that? And that's when you got to really look close, and that's when you realize, okay, this was my story. This is how I came to know God was real. I was like, okay, these people, I researched these conspiracies, and I come to believe they are legitimately taking psychedelic substances and all sorts of stuff to communicate with what they believe are interdimensional beings or demons, basically, right? Like they are communicating with spirits. I'm like, okay, the devil is real. God must be real. That's the conclusion I came to after going deep, deep into conspiracies and why there are so many true things covered up. And that is why we can't rely on the arm of flesh. We must go to God with all things. It doesn't matter what it is, because when you notice these cracks, you realize you can't comprehend or try to understand the arm of flesh. You can't. And it's not to say everything's a conspiracy, but there are certainly things that are hidden from our sight.
Yeah, and this information can lead you down a couple paths. The path it also leads me down is just a gratitude when I recognize that everything was created directly by God. I am filled. I'll stare at a leaf and just be like, wow, this is incredible. And I'm filled with gratitude that He created my body. And when I look at how complex it is, um, and how He's orchestrating everything, He's planning it, He's in charge of it. And so, um, yeah, yeah. So there's so much more on the topic that talks about this as well that I have 60 more slides, I think. So I can keep pushing forward? Is
Yes.
that
Yes, dear.
that's okay. So, I believe that the reason that they need to the millions of years, like I mentioned earlier, is they need time to make this fairy tale happen. So you can see here this fairy is turning an ape into a human, and or turning a pumpkin into a carriage, right? And so that's a fairy tale, and that's what I believe is evolution. It is a fairy tale. Um, so let's go into we mentioned the
Well,
radiometric dating. What is
re-
up
re-
with
it's also in scripture that like Paul says that 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 they will believe in fables, right?
yes. Yes, I love that. I love that Paul said that. In 2 Peter 3, it says, in the last days will scoffers come, and they'll say, where is the time of his coming? And then they will deny. And it actually mentions uniformitarianism in 2 Peter 3, that they'll believe all things continue as they were from the beginning. And for a long time, scientists were only believing in uniformitarianism, like things like slowly evolve over million, you know, and slowly progress. And then they can't explain the pyramids because they're like, well, we used to have Stone Age and Iron Age people. They didn't have this type of technology to build a pyramid, so it must have been the aliens. But we know that the Nephite civilization had a thriving, and they had technology, and like like you mentioned about the mound builders, and I was just at the Cahokia Mounds outside of St. Louis 4 weeks ago, and they had 20,000 people in that civilization, and we're taught that they were just savages. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, in the Ohio Field Museum, currently in the back of it, they don't show this on display, but they'll admit that they found it. They have, I think it was 90 something iron and copper chest plates and axes. Iron, not even just copper. And they'll be like, oh, it came from a meteorite or something. That doesn't make any sense. Is it really more realistic to believe that Native Americans would get a rock and then they're just hammering away at some meteorite iron and it makes a perfect chest plate with and it's just so pure? Or did they just get it hot and shape it like the other people in the world?
Yeah.
It's right. It's fake.
Where it
It's
is.
fairy tales. That's what they believe in.
And there's this narrative that they want to push, right? I think it demeans us as children of God. They want us to think that we're lesser than we really are, and they don't want us to know who we are. And it's empowering when we know, wow, like God is my father. Like what's more empowering than that? Or
Right.
is a worm my great 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 grandfather? Like, or an ape? Like that's totally not empowering, right? Demoralizing. So, and this is the thing with carbon dating, because everybody wants to know, like, why are they telling us this? Like, where's the science? Because and some people think, well, maybe the formula's off, but what we found is the formula is actually good. It, the radiometric dating, like the argon method and whatnot, the formula is sound, but the problem is the assumptions or the inputs. So there's 3 critical assumptions that go into carbon dating. Not carbon, but carbon only goes up to 50,000 years roughly.
Yeah.
Radiometric is the one that goes really far when they're testing uranium and the decay of the half-life of the isotopes within the uranium, and it turns into lead. So, but the assumptions they make is that there's no daughter atoms initially in the system. The second is that there's the parent and daughter atoms cannot leave the system, that it's a closed system. And there's no way to know because we weren't there a million years ago to test the system.
This episode is sponsored by Oraqel Code. I'm going to run your code first. It's called your Oracle Code. It's going to tell me everything I need to know about who you are. Miss Gloria enters this world spiritually encoded with wholeness and return. The number 10 is sacred, a blend of oneness and completion. She is a finisher, a restorer, and a vessel through which divine designs move. We're going to take this information. We're going to build a song now.
Boy, you knew your name. I traced you in light, marked you with fire on the edge of the night. You were born to finish what others let go. A sacred flame wrapped in grace and shadow.
What do you think? You want me to send it to you?
Yes.
Did we do good?
You did.
It's a miracle, huh? It's almost as good as walking on water, if you ask me. So nice to meet you.
Thank you.
To get your Oracle code now, either click the link or take a picture of that QR code and you can get your Oracle code and your song today.
The third assumption they make is constant decay rate. The rate at which the parent atoms decay must have been constant in the past and the same as today's measured rates. So you're like, okay, are these 3 things perfect? And we know that if an airplane gets off from President Uchtdorf, right, Elder Uchtdorf, 1 degree, that you can end up in a different continent. We know that those small numbers make a big difference. And so what they've been able to do is they've been able to test the test. So how do you know if the test is accurate? You take the age of a known rock. So the only known rocks that we've ever seen created are from lava flows. So we can take the lava flows, for example, here on Mount Kilauea. It erupted in 1959. That rock was 8.5 million years old when they tested it with the radiometric tests. Mount Stromboli, 1963, showed up at 2.4 million years. So we know this rock is 50, 60 years old, but it's coming back at 2.4 million. And so consistently we're finding these are deep ages that are really far off. And I mean, we can also go into the cherry picking examples because even the results on the same rock are not the same result. You could send the same rock into two different labs, and they could be off by 100,000 years or 500,000 years. And so then they sometimes are picking the number that works the best. But to me, this was kind of a bombshell mic drop when I was like, whoa, this shows that these radiometric tests are really off. Right. That the deep time is something that, we trust in it, but it takes quite a bit of faith to trust in that formula.
Can you go back to the slide before that one you were just showing? I feel like I missed something there while the one right before this one. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, very good. Cool. Go ahead and continue.
Yeah. So, I mean, the rocks don't come with the dates stamped on them, right? We have to figure out and it's pretty cool that we can even guess. I just wish it was entirely accurate and that the assumptions weren't off. So the funner thing for me is the dragons, right? And the dinosaurs. Like we know that dragons are mentioned in the Book of Mormon and dinosaurs. Um, there's evidence for them all over. So one of my first examples is the fiery flying serpents that were among the Israelites. And we know that Lehi mentioned them as well in the Book of Mormon, that these animals were poisoning people and they were called fiery flying serpents. Now, I don't know of any serpents today that can fly. And so I believe this is an animal that doesn't exist today. It was extinct, has gone extinct. Some sort of a reptile or a dragon that, I mean, also the animals mentioned called the cockatrice, in the Bible. And the cockatrice lived in a den.
You know, this is gonna sound really weird, but this is what keeps coming to me. I believe there's a good chance you're right about this. And if you are, I really hope that like in the end times when it's like on one end of the world there's Zion being built, on the other end there's the Antichrist. I really hope that these dragons make a comeback because that would just make it so much cooler. Like just imagine there's literally dragons flying around like and people are just like they're in some cave somewhere, like some like isolated thing like in the North Country or something, and then they just return. That would
Yeah,
I
that'd be
think,
so cool.
and to your point too, Jeremy, like I remember seeing there was some guy, you'll have to call him out. Maybe you're gonna show this, but there's some guy that made a point to kill all the dragons. Like he was a dragon slayer and he lived in Europe. And I think he's famous for saving some princess or some maiden, or
Is
king.
his name Shrek by chance?
Like, no, you might have been.
right. I think there's a lot of pop culture going through your head right now. Check
No, there's a guy who rode on a horse. I think it was like not
St. George.
yeah,
St.
Saint
George.
George.
Yeah.
There's a saint.
So I have a picture of him coming up. Yeah, so St. George is one of the most famous dragon slayers, but they were everywhere. Dragon legends and slayers are not they didn't come out of thin air like Chad mentioned before the show, right? Like how do you get dragon legends across oceans and continents that are all so similar for literally thousands of years? And why did they persist? As a matter of fact, I read a book. Because when I was getting into the topic, I went to the library and checked out every book. As a matter of fact, my first slide picture was me up at the University of Utah opening a picture, or sorry, a bestiary written in a language I couldn't read. Didn't even know what language it was, but it shows it was about the 15th century bestiary, a compendium of beasts explaining the animals they had at the time. And I had to wash my hands just to touch the book, and I could only flip one page at a time. And I was looking at the dragon pictures and depictions right next to an elephant or a horse. Um, so it was super fun. And I guess I forgot where I was going with that, but there's just oh yeah, the book that I checked out of the library was by an evolutionist, and he said, "Why do we believe in dragons?" It's actually called An Instinct for Dragons.
Huh.
And if you want to waste a lot of time, go read it. He said that we believe in dragons because when we evolved from apes, back when we were apes, according to him, we were afraid of three things in the jungle: jaguars, birds of prey, and snakes. And that went down into our DNA and came out as humans. And now all of a sudden they combined and we're afraid of dragons. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, this is a published book and people are buying it and they're believing this stuff. So bizarre. So, one of my favorite evidences, sorry, David, go ahead.
No, I wanted to mention that I went ahead and just took a photo. Well, I took my camera and used one of the QR codes just to pull up some of this stuff, and it looks like you've got some really cool resources here related to what you're talking about. So I didn't want to step on that. Maybe you're gonna mention that.
Yeah, this is just a flyer I used to print out at a class. So I threw it in there as a slide. Up to the top left is actually the video, I think the same video we watched about the soft tissue. And then I had the people doing a survey in the middle QR. The top right QR code is about this footprint that they found called the Delk print down in the Paluxy River Formation, Texas. There you see the human footprint to the left, and then the dinosaur theropod footprint touching it on the right. And this was only discovered in 2008. Now, they had a lot of footprints in the river formation before that, human and dinosaur. And there's a really cool video on it you could watch. It's like super pixelated and old, but it shows these old farmers digging up these footprints. They're like, whoa, there's a human footprint in this sediment that's supposed to be millions of years old. What's going on with this?
What
So,
that looks like the human footprint was made first, and it almost looks like you can see how the big toe went deeper.
It's smushing the human footprint
Yeah, like the dinosaur footprint came after because
after the human footprint.
yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, that's true. It's smushing it.
yeah, isn't that wild? I love it. And I actually have a replica of this. It weighs like 50 pounds and it's like
Oh wow.
20 feet that I bought from a guy at the Flood Museum in Nauvoo.
Is that at your house right now?
He has it. I got to go pick it up this week from him because I loaned it back to him. Um, but really awesome artifact because this is just kind of like a mic drop look, guys. These were living together. I mean, this is a big controversy, of course, because they say, well, this was a fake, a fraud, this can't be, but it's been actually CT scanned in a hospital
Oh,
under the CAT scanner or whatever, and verified that it was actually imprinted
who found
naturally.
this in 2008?
Yeah, well, the guy found it in 2000, but then he wanted to go sell it and make some money off of it. And in 2008, he started cleaning it off. And as he was cleaning it, the human footprint was buried under some mud.
Oh
So
wow.
pretty wild story. This is Cambodia. I call it the Tomb Raider Temple. I've actually been here before I knew about this. I would have looked at this personally, but this is what something people think looks a lot like a Stegosaurus in the cave wall. Then here's the ancient Egyptian. They call them the Narmer palette. Is this one on the right? And these long-necked animals, you can see they're on multiple different artifacts. And they've actually come up with a name for the animal because it is so prevalent in ancient carvings. They've named it a serpopard, which is kind of a weird name.
You know, to play devil's advocate, how do you know this isn't a giraffe? That's what a lot of people might say.
Yeah, that's a good question.
That's true.
I
I sneeze. A lot of people would say that.
Yeah, they could say it is a giraffe. I don't know that a giraffe could move its neck like that. I fed a giraffe a few weeks ago. It was really cool. And it didn't seem at all to me like that because the giraffe has longer legs.
It doesn't have that tail. It has like a little tiny tail.
And the scientists, yeah, it does. You're right. A giraffe has a smart tail. The scientists and the archaeologists have named this a separate animal because they know it's not an animal that we have today. That's why they named it a serpopard. Otherwise,
When I
it was
look at
because
when I look at those necks, they look definitely a lot more serpent-like. I mean, I imagine maybe a snake is just an animal that lost its legs and forearms and whatnot. But it's just kind of interesting to see that a serpent's able to do a lot more with its neck or with its body than a mammal like a giraffe would.
yeah, wow, good analysis. I like that. This is one carving down in southern Utah, right here in our home state. And I wanted to know if this was real, so I personally hiked to it. I said, "Where is that thing?" And we went down below Kachina Bridge in Bears Ears area, and there's my family with my 2 little boys, and we found it up on the cliff. I'm like, "Whoa, there it is." We found all these petroglyphs, and I couldn't get up, so I put this log and this rocks to support it. I literally climbed up that little log, and then when I was up there, I couldn't get down until some guy came by and we called for help. But this is how high up it was, and then I was right next to it. I think that's the wrong picture,
Oh,
but
you can kind of see some stuff in that wall over there.
this is the one that it was.
I've seen the photo where you're really right next to it, so I know it exists.
Yeah, so that was really fun to see and touch, and I could tell they, like, hit it with a rock. They, like, etched it out. So, I mean, I didn't go deep into them. I have probably 20 more pictures of different, like, evidences of dinosaur and man. I think I might pull a few more up because I think we need a couple more in this discussion. So but I wanna talk about why they died, and how they died. But let me pull up a couple more here because
That's interesting to think. I wonder why you think they might be grouped in those red blotches, you know?
I think it's very possible that there were dinosaurs on the earth at the same time as humans, but they were rare. So it was like a rare mythical creature. And that's why we have these legends of like dragon hunters and stuff, because they weren't common, right? It's not like, oh, there was dinosaurs everywhere. Maybe at some point, maybe in the Garden of Eden, but it could be that the further the earth got away from Eden and being in that terrestrial glory, the harder it was for them to survive, right? So they became more and more rare. And that's why we're able to see on these Egyptian things, like, yes, there's clearly this creature that they believed in, but it's not so common that we just like everyone knows what it is exactly. You know what I mean? Like it could have been like a legendary Pokemon in the Pokemon games where you don't see it every day, but it's still there.
yeah, it's like today we know that there's a duck-billed platypus in Australia, but very few people have seen it. But they bring out a skeleton, and there's so the stories are gonna pass on. And today, our technology and our videos, we could
Right.
see pictures of it and whatnot. So, but back then they did paintings and carvings. So here's the Ica stones, if you could see my screen, in Peru, and you could see they carved these people, like, riding on top of one, and here's a guy with a spear, and there's several of these. This is
Are
actually a
you
page out of my book.
are you able to zoom into that a little bit? I'm seeing like it looks like it's within Google Slides or something.
Okay, you're having a hard time seeing the actual
Yeah, it's not
it's not
showing
a
like
PDF,
face
it's
Oh, okay. Well, that looks cool. I think I can kind of see a little bit.
then here's probably my favorite artifact. So we went over the one in Cambodia, some long necks in, Greece, and some more of those long neck carvings, serpopards. And this is a painting down in Australia, and then we have an African figurine. So essentially, what I'm saying is, I think that Fred Flintstone was right, guys. I'm here holding Fred Flintstone riding on a dinosaur. I think it could have been real.
Yeah, I can literally hear the steam noise from the cartoon when he's getting off work.
Oh my gosh, that's such a fun show. So I think they knew something. There's so many more carvings and artifacts and paintings. Let's go to some really good ones. This is a French guy, Peter Bruegel, who painted this in 1562, depicting the suicide of Saul, when Saul's last battle, when he ended up committing suicide in First Samuel. And if you zoom in really closely, you could see there's these people on top of these animals. And these have been argued to be camels by some people. And they're like, oh, those were just camels. But I can't see them as being camels.
What year was that painted, do you think?
That was in 1562.
Wow.
And I love this quote on this page that Mark Twain said, it's easier to fool people than to convince them they've been fooled. There's one more I've got to show you that's one of my favorites because the pigments were actually tested by Vance Nilsson. Here's a Mayan painting of this dinosaur looking head. And then we know that the Chinese calendar today has 11 real animals, has a snake and a dragon. The dragon is separate. Why would they have 11 real animals and also a dragon if it wasn't a real animal? So
And that goes back to, why does every culture have an idea of a dragon? Every single culture.
every culture, I mean, even South America, Australia. I mean, we know Europe and China are the most prevalent, of course. Um, then we have the Gate of Babylon that was uncovered in it was 1899 when they started uncovering it.
Are you able to scroll down on that slide? It's cut off on the bottom a little bit. Okay.
Yeah, this has on the Gate of Babylon. When they uncovered, they found a bull and a lion and also a dragon. Once again, why would they put a mythical animal with two real animals? And I'm having a hard time finding my favorite one. So let me go up. Okay, here's my favorite one. This is a Mayan painting down in South America in the Amazon jungle. And Vance Nelson, who I've met, he actually went down and tested the pigment with some scientists to verify that it was accurate and real. And here these people are surrounding this animal trying to kill it. And so it gives you an idea of the size of it based on the people standing next to it and whatnot.
Yeah, it's like two different photos of the same image. That's cool. Side by side.
Imagine if part of what's going to be in the sealed portion, it's going to shock the world, is it's going to talk about like dinosaurs being on the world at the same time as Jesus or something.
You get me all excited. I can't wait for the sealed portion to come out.
Well, and this is
So
we're talking about some example of what we're missing from the world's history. So it's really cool.
Yeah, and I think that's really because a lot of people, they have this idea that the sealed portion won't happen until the second coming, and that's not what the Book of Mormon says. The Book of Mormon says that once we have faith like the brother of Jared, then the sealed portion will come, and then comes this great and marvelous work with the building up of Zion and all this stuff, and then's the second coming, right? So, since Zion is going to be like not just a religious thing, but a political government entity, the government will be upon his shoulders. What I'm thinking is that the sealed book that contains the vision of all things, it won't just be doctrinal. It's going to expose things about the history of the world that is going to make kings shut their mouths. And they're going to be like, what on earth is this? Because it's going to expose the real history of the world. And that may be the vision that was shown unto the brother of Jared.
I think that the people aren't ready yet for the whole truth. And we know that, like you said, one day it will be proclaimed from the rooftops, the truth. Everybody will know. And it'll be an exciting day. One of the truths is, how did the dinosaurs die? So I hold in my hand a fossil of, this is called a Nanotyrannus. So it's a small Tyrannosaurus tooth. And the reason I show this to you is because it has this matrix or the sediment around it. This is sedimentary rock. So how do dinosaur bones even die, and how do they fossilize? So this is so important to our knowledge of the gospel and the scriptures, because it goes right into the flood of Noah. If you notice here on this map, there's dotted dots all over the globe of these huge dinosaur graveyards.
Oh, we don't see the map. Where's that map?
Okay, sorry about that. I can only apparently present one screen at a time, so I think that was my problem.
Yeah, no worries.
So on this map here, it shows dinosaur graveyards all over the earth. And all the way right here in North America, they're very plentiful in the Morrison Formation, which is where I live in Utah, up into Canada, down all the way into Colorado and Arizona. Obviously, there's some in Europe, Spain, Australia, Morocco, and China have a ton of dinosaur bones. I bought many from Morocco. This one I'm holding, this shell is from Morocco. This clam.
That looks like a clam.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
clam shell.
I think you were showing that earlier, maybe. That's cool.
Yeah, this is a Moroccan fossil. They have literally just millions of fossils over there. So the question is, why are they buried all at the same time? And how did they even get buried? And how did they even fossilize? Because today in our world, animals don't just fossilize. Dead deer, cow, and elk up in the mountains don't fossilize, right? So if you look at any fossilized dinosaur display, read about it and say, how did this animal die? How did it fossilize? This one says it might have been fighting in a flood moments before it died. It says that it might have fallen into a ditch or stumbled into boggy ground. Here's one of the best preserved Ankylosaurus or Ankylus, or however you want to pronounce it, was swept into an undersea burial. Okay. And it says possibly swept in by a flood because they had to be buried rapidly and preserved, kicking up soupy mud that engulfed it. This one said it was swiftly buried, engulfed in mud, buried by mud, violent shaking of the home. It's
So wait, do you ever see articles where they say these are dinosaurs that died by like a tar? So I remember as a kid, I would see those books, and they'd often show like dinosaurs maybe stuck in tar.
Yeah, so there's actually no dinosaurs in tar. I think what you're thinking of is the La Brea tar pits in Los Angeles, California. And what you're thinking of is the saber-toothed tiger, or there are some mammoths and some saber-tooths that fell into the tar.
Oh, okay.
And they're really cool. If you ever get a chance to go down to LA, the tar is still bubbling up right now.
Do they get preserved with that as well, or is it?
Yeah, they are preserved. So those are a more modern,
Oh,
I believe those are a more modern
but there's no
fossil.
dinosaurs in tar.
There were no what we would call a dinosaur, like a theropod, four-legged, or a two-legged. Sauropod, four-legged, or a theropod, kind of a two-legged raptor-like animal. Most of the boneyards that I showed you on the map were all buried in sediment. So they're buried in the sedimentary rock, which sediment is laid down by mud and water, right? So we guessed the creatures had been buried in minutes, perhaps by a flash flood of an ancient river. This is the National Geographic describing a bone burial. This one said it's clear that the dinosaur remains were rapidly buried before substantial scavenging could take place. They were covered by sediments from floodwaters. Okay. They think that there was these ancient oceans and these ancient floodplains. As a matter of fact, today, where I live in Utah, there's ancient Lake Bonneville, and there's actually seashells in the mountains. The ancient Lake Bonneville that we know covered the whole valley. And there's ancient lakes that were down in Nevada, in Arizona. When I was in Las Vegas, they're like, oh yeah, there was an ancient lake down here too. So it's like, whoa, guys, something's adding up. So the chance an animal will become fossilized is 1 in a million. So these were buried so quickly that they didn't have time to finish their dinner. This fish was, you can dig these fish up in Kemmer, Wyoming. My family's been up there to dig up fossil fish. Really fun time if you get a chance to take the kids.
Wow.
So it's
Fish.
Yeah, it's literally eating other fish. And this graveyard in Canada, I haven't had a chance to go there yet. I was I was about 20 miles away and I couldn't make it. But the Hilda Bone Beds not Alberta, but British Columbia. Thousands of centrosaurs. They still haven't counted them all because they're still uncovering more. We're buried in this huge graveyard. This is like a Triceratops with one horn. How on earth did these animals all get buried and not get scavenged or decayed? Can't sneeze. In Spain, there was 500 and maybe up to 900 animals buried. This is in eastern Spain. This is our own dinosaur land in Vernal, Utah, where there's a huge wall of dinosaur bones, and there's multiple species intermingled. The bones are intermingled. And I was actually there before I had learned about this topic. And I asked the ranger there, I said, how did all these bones get into one place like this? She's like, oh, there was an ancient river and the bones were washed down and they all accumulated and I was like, oh, okay, interesting. And then I was like, wait a second, there's a similar wall in China. There's a similar wall. Here's the one in China. Like, wait, there was an ancient river there too? But they all say they lived along riverbanks and died during natural disasters. Okay, these animals were drowning. They were choking. This is the common death pose where their necks are arched. And this is very, very commonly found. That Tyrannosaurus and looks like a Gallimimus. So animals today aren't fossilizing. When they slaughtered millions of bison on the plains, sadly, the white man, how many of those became petrified or fossilized? Right? None. So it's not just that the animal dies, it has to be have the proper process of fossilization. And the universal model teaches the real process of fossilization. So if you guys can ever get a chance to read the universal model, I have the book right here next to me so I could show you. And you've seen this, right, David?
Yeah, I have.
Really awesome book. It's big though. I mean, there's 2 volumes. He's working on the 3rd one, but it goes into the very detailed process of fossilization. So we believe this was the flood of Noah, guys. This was a huge world flood because these animal bones would rot and decay and be scavenged otherwise. So a worldwide flood, this small river cannot form these huge canyons. This was a huge catastrophic event, something the world has never seen since. Right? And God promised he would never bring another flood upon the earth. But we know in the Book of Mormon that are huge destructions. The entire cities were sunk. Moronihah was buried by earth. Moroni did sink in the depths of the sea. And I like how they say all these great and terrible things were in verse 19 were done in about the space of 3 hours before Christ came. And the whole face of the earth became deformed in 3 Nephi 8:17. So we know these catastrophic events happen, and the science is now proving it as well. So scientists have changed their theory of uniformitarianism, and they brought in one catastrophe, and they call it the asteroid in the Yucatan Peninsula. But the problem is the Yucatan Peninsula, didn't bury things all the way in China, and it just doesn't make sense. So I think that this was the flood of Noah, and I think there's scriptures to substantiate it. Here I've listed 5 scriptures or 6 scriptures, one in each book of canonized scripture that we have in the church, mentioning the flood of Noah as a real event, not just some fairy tale, not just some fun kid's story. Because that's kind of what we're told is like, we're told that this is impossible. It couldn't have happened. I was actually with some friends the other day, and we're kind of sitting around the camp at night, and we're talking, and they know that I'm into this topic, and they're like, I don't believe that Noah brought all the animals on the ark. They said it's impossible. And her dad's a seminary teacher. Sorry. Really great people. But this is like, I believe, common thought. And I think it's causing a problem in our church with a lack of faith. They said, I think it's impossible. All I said to him, I says, well, do you think that Jesus walked on water? Do you believe that Jesus fed 5,000 with a few loaves and fishes? And then they're like, oh, yeah, well, and because we can't explain everything and how it worked, but there are some explanations in how Noah did it. But that's what I think is the problem is I think we're not taking the scriptures as literal as we need to. I think we're saying, oh, that's a story, that's figurative, right?
Well, and President Ezra Taft Benson, I mean, I literally just posted yesterday general a general conference talk that I quoted him in a Sunday talk, and he said that we're condemned. Like he was reiterating section 84 of the Doctrine and Covenants because we're not taking seriously the Book of Mormon. And like if they're talking about dragons in the Book of Mormon, comparing the Nephites to dragons or people in the Book of Mormon to dragons, then there must have been something to compare them to. And like you're saying, Chad, like it's really interesting how, all this lines up with other people in the world,
Right.
Yeah, it's like we're not taking seriously the Bible, the Book of Mormon, and neither are science. We're either joining the scientists that say we're, that this stuff is
I think it's the same thing when we're also not only talking about the past, but taking the future. Because there are the people who they try and take like 3rd Nephi 21 and say that that's talking about Joseph Smith and the restoration of the church, when it's talking about the establishment of Zion and the guy who built Zion, right? Because these are future things, but people try to compress things because they don't have the faith. They don't have the faith that this actually happened in the past with Noah's flood, so they make excuses. They don't have faith that Zion is going to be a literal nation that is built up upon somebody's shoulders. And so they're like, well, the Zion was the church and Joseph Smith's the guy who's on its shoulders. And it's like, we need to take these things literally and seriously if we want more.
Yeah, and Jesus specifically tells Nicodemus, if I tell you of worldly things and you believe me not, how can I tell you of spiritual things? Right? And that's the problem. And I totally agree with you that there is some condemnation going on, that we may be too caught up into the worldly things of the world, wealth and riches, and I don't doubt it at all. And I think Jesus has tried to tell us, right? He's been trying to tell us in multiple ways. He says, I will not come back in this I will not come back like the flood, but I will come back with fire. And that's what he says in Matthew 24. He says, for as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day that Noah entered the ark. And that's the way he's going to come back, is we will not be aware also. We will be eating, drinking, and marrying and giving in marriage. He'll come as a thief in the night.
Noah came before the flood. I've come before the fire.
Love it. Yeah, very beautiful.